All right, welcome to another edition of Inside Gateway. It is the third Wednesday of the month, so we are back in Illinois. This week we have Erik and Carrie Wiegand with us, going to Goodfield Church, correct? Mm-hmm. And we're going to hear a little bit about their story and how they are connected to Gateway. So welcome, Erik and Carrie.
Thank you.
So I guess to begin with, maybe just take us back to before you were ever at Gateway Woods, living in Goodfield, right? Mm-hmm. And how did you end up out there?
Okay. I have to think way back.
Mm-hmm.
So, I remember that I was always intrigued by Gateway. And at that time, there was a shortage of house parents.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember them announcing and feeling like, man, I really feel like that's something Erik and I should do. But just, it felt super scary. And so I just didn't really say anything to Erik and just kind of pushed it out of my mind. And then they kept announcing it week after week. And then one Sunday, I think Erik was in Sunday school or something, visiting, or I don't know what he was doing. But anyhow, he wasn't there. And it was one Sunday when they didn't announce it. And I felt like, relief. They must have found someone. And then at the end of the service, Keith Lehman stood up and he said, I just really feel like I need to make a special announcement. And he just shared how needy they were for house parents. And I was just like, we really should be out there. I just really felt like that's what God wanted for us. So I told Erik about it and he was not feeling at all what I was feeling. And I just really just started praying that if God wanted us to do it, that he would work in Erik's heart. And so I started praying, and then it kind of...
Yeah, so we had been married about 3 years, and we didn't have any children. We'd had 2 or 3 miscarriages, and so there were some difficult things going on in our marriage anyway, and I was comfortable. I enjoyed my job. I loved what I did. Wasn't looking to move, never thought about moving, just thought I'd always be here. And so when Carrie mentioned it to me, I was immediately resistant. I had been to Gateway as a volunteer when I was single and enjoyed the few days, really loved it, but didn't necessarily feel like I would ever be there working or serving or whatever. But she didn't nag me about it. She just mentioned it. I was a bit resistant. But then at some point I just decided, okay, I really should at least pray about it because I didn't even want to pray about it. And so I finally did that, and I prayed sincerely, God, if this is what you want us to do, you're going to have to bring me around to that. And he did. It took some weeks, but suddenly I just came to the point where I'm like, I could surrender to that, and then I could be excited about it, and suddenly I was ready to do that. But it didn't come overnight, for sure.
Yeah, that reminds me a lot of our story. I mean, I had a friend ask me if we would consider it, and I told him no right away. Didn't even think about it, didn't even pray about it. And then about a year later, another friend asked us, and it was kind of the same thing, like maybe I should just pray about this a little bit. And through that, God just changed my heart, and we ended up out there. So that's neat. I didn't know that about your story. So
yeah.
So then you decided to move out there. What was that process like? Was it difficult to leave Goodfield? I know you said you had a job that you loved, and were there moments of looking back? And
yeah, it was difficult. I was working with my dad. We were working very closely together. Really enjoyed my job. Loved it. I had no desire to leave what I was doing. So yeah, that was hard. And we were the first to move away of my family, of either of our families. And so even though it's not real far, it was still going to be an adjustment for everyone. So it was a mixture of nervousness and excitement and sorrow all at the same time. A lot of emotions, but we were ready to go.
Yeah. Okay, so you get out there, you're in Leo, your house parents. Take us back to the good old days of house parenting. And I mean, what maybe have you kept up on how it's changed over the years? And
we're catching up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was it like when you got into the house? And did they just toss you in, or was there training? And
we went through some training, some formal training. I couldn't tell you how many days or weeks that was. It wasn't real long. And then we started out as alternate house parents in the East House, which is now
East House.
Hickory House now. Yep, thank you. And so it was, we had some training, but it felt like very quickly we were in charge of the house. And it felt fast to us, but we were also, 3 years into a marriage, we had no kids, no parenting experience, no experience with teenagers or any of this. So it was all new.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time we were on duty, they took us to town a little bit. We learned hard and fast. We learned really fast.
Yeah. Thrown to the wolves.
It felt like that. I'm sure it wasn't. But in our minds, it's like, I can't believe we're doing this already. We don't know what we're doing. And they know we don't know what we're doing.
Yeah. So did you have kids while you were house parents? Or was that after?
Yeah, we found out
Shortly after we moved.
shortly after we arrived in Leo, we found out Carrie was pregnant with our first.
Okay.
And she carried Savannah through, and she was born in April. So we moved out in July of 2001.
Okay.
Savannah was born in April of 2002. And so then we had Jonas while we were house parents. As well. And then we left when she was pregnant with Claire.
Okay. Was that experience difficult, having kids at Gateway?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
It was good because babies always,
Mm-hmm.
just changed the atmosphere completely.
Yeah.
So that part was good, and the Gateway kids always love a baby, so that's good too.
Yeah. Yeah, we experienced the same things. We thought kids were a huge part of the treatment there and changed the dynamic of the house completely. So
Yeah, it was hard where she would have to be with our children sometimes in the back or whatever, and so it was the assistant and I a lot of the time. And so it was fine. It's just she wasn't always able to be involved as much as she wanted to.
Right.
There was always a balance there we had to really concentrate on. So.
Yeah. Okay, so during your time there, how do you feel like, or did it change you? Did it mold you, shape you? And do you have any, I send questions ahead of time, but I did not send you this question, but do you have any memories of just moments where you just knew God was moving either in your heart or in the resident's heart and it just impacted you and it sticks with you?
Do you have something?
Go ahead and start.
Okay. I guess one thing would be, it was actually a really rough time with one of our girls, and we actually ended up having to call the police, and I was just really crushed and disappointed and just really bummed. And I remember it was winter, so I went back to her room after the police had come, and I grabbed her coat, and I saw that she had one of her stuffed animals on her bed, so I just grabbed a stuffed animal and stuffed it down her sleeve, and ran her coat out to her and just kind of put it over her shoulders. And she ended up coming back, and she told me that one of the things that really spoke to her was when she put her arm into her sleeve and found that animal, and she's like, I knew that you had put it there, and I knew that you guys loved me and that you really did want the best for me.
Yeah.
And so that was something that was really special to me, that God, even without me realizing that that would bless her, he had me do that. That was really neat.
That is neat.
Yeah, I would say for me, in a personal way, it was a time of very rapid spiritual growth for me. I've been maybe in a little bit of a rut, and I needed to be maybe moved out of my comfort zone for God to grow me. And I remember being confronted by these young people and having my convictions challenged. And suddenly I found myself having to go to the Bible to help these young people understand why we believe what we believe, why we find some things are right and
Or
why
even
some
for
things
yourself,
are wrong.
like,
Or for
why
myself.
do I think this?
Yeah, they're challenging me, and I'm asking myself, why do I think this? Why is this true? And so I found myself digging into the Word, and they sharpened me in ways that I can't even describe. I grew a lot in those years, and it was just they did wonderful things. I think sometimes I learned more at Gateway Woods than they did.
Yeah.
I really think it was wonderful.
Yeah, I remember sitting in the office with residents, talking to them, talking through a situation, and I'm thinking, man, I could be sitting right in that chair over there. I'm talking to myself right now, and it was hugely convicting to go through that. So, all right, so your house parents for many years, then you decide it's time to hang up whatever, the gloves, and move on. So what kept you in Leo? Was it just you felt you've been established there, or?
We prayed about it. I mean, obviously we had the option to move home here, and
We always assumed we would.
we assumed we would. I mean, that seemed like the thing. You go put in your time in the military, right? You
Yeah.
get out and you go
Yeah.
home. But we both felt we had felt so at home in Leo, and the church was just had welcomed us and made us feel like it was really our home. And so we prayed about that, and I started looking for jobs in the area, and had a couple of really good opportunities, and one of those was just we really felt peaceful about that. And so it was a hard decision because I think our family kind of expected we would move home. And
It was actually kind of funny how it worked out, because we had announced we were leaving, and we didn't even talk about what we were going to do. We just both were planning on moving back.
Yeah.
And it was probably about a week after we had said that we were leaving, and I was like, I just feel like we're supposed to stay here, and I did not want to tell him. And so at bedtime one night I said, I got something I got to tell you. And he's like, what? Like totally worried. And I said, I feel like we're supposed to stay in Indiana. And he's like, I do too, and I had no clue I was going to tell you. And so then from that point on, that's when we started looking into other options. But
Okay.
yeah, so it wasn't necessarily an easy decision, but we knew it was the right thing to do, for sure.
Okay. So you leave Gateway, and then you guys kind of stayed connected to the organization a little bit through the auction.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think maybe within a year after we left, maybe two, I don't remember exactly, I took over the auction setup from Ed Graff. And so we worked with the auction committee for several years, maybe 8 or 9 years, doing the auction every year. It's a great way for us to stay connected with what's going on there a little bit, at least once a year. And really enjoyed staying connected that way, and through church and mentoring and things like that.
Yeah. So through those 8 or 9 years, did you also stay in touch with former residents, or?
Yeah, as well as we could. As social media became more mainstream and popular, we found that we were able to locate them and stay in better contact. But yeah, I would say over the years, out of the 17 young people that came through our house, I think we stay in contact with a handful, I would say regularly.
Okay. All right, so moving down the road, you're in Leo, things are going smoothly, and then for those that don't know you, God kind of throws another curveball in your life. I kind of brought that up awkwardly. So why don't you share with everyone where God took you after that?
okay. I don't know where to start.
It doesn't have to be long. It can
Okay, it can be short.
Yeah.
I'd say one of the major things that we did as a couple is we took a perspectives class.
Okay.
I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's a course that's all about like the history of missions, what's left as far as missions are concerned, like how big the task is, just kind of lays everything out. And so through the course of that class, we learned about the 6 different ways to be involved in missions, and it was really good for us as a couple to think about it. And we had struggled through the years because we really had loved family ministry at Gateway, and just really loved working together as a couple. We just really enjoyed it and loved family ministry, and we looked into a few things, and it just didn't feel like God was opening any doors. And so on the very first night of class, I remember we prayed as a group a big prayer of surrender, just about God, whatever you want for us.
Okay.
And so I feel like at that time for Eric and I, it became a time of actively pursuing what he wanted for us. And we learned that there are 6 ways to be involved, and I probably can't name them all, but only one of them is going, giving, praying. Anyways, on the last night of class, they went through all of the 6 ways, and they said, we want you to stand up when we say the word that you think you're supposed to be. And I was sitting there and I was like, pretty sure we're supposed to be goers. But I'm like, Eric's not going to stand up. And so when they said, if you're a goer, stand up, I stood up and I looked over and Eric was standing up and we were both like, okay, now what? Like, and so you can go now. I don't know what to say next.
Yeah, so I mean, it wasn't really my first choice. I'm not maybe the greatest risk taker in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And this sounded, Gateway was a fairly easy transition compared to what we were faced with now, it seemed. And so we started actively looking for opportunities overseas, and we didn't have any particular place in mind, no particular people group we were attached to or wanting to go to. So we were very open. There were a lot of opportunities. I preferred something in agriculture, since that was my background, and I was felt like that's where my skills were. So we prayed about it a lot. We looked at opportunities, and in talking to our friends John and Amy Gerst, he brought up and mentioned that Lifesong for Orphans was looking for someone for their farm. And I said, well, that sounds like as good an opportunity as any, since it's a local ministry and connected with church, and I like that idea. So we prayed about that. We interviewed with Lifesong for Orphans, and it seemed like a good fit. And so we decided we were going to go for it, and we were going to move to Zambia, Africa with our family. And we had 4 children by that time, ages 11 down to 7, I think. So young family, and there was a lot of trepidation with that decision, I guess I would say.
Okay. So you moved to Zambia and you get integrated there. Do you feel like your time at Gateway, you'd been separated from your house parenting days for a while then, but do you feel like you leaned on any of that experience as you moved over there and got involved, or was it just so completely different that you felt like you were learning a new skill set, if you will?
Okay. I mean, the culture was definitely different, but one thing that I found very similar was just seeing how families were under attack, whether it's in America or in Africa. You can really see that Satan is attacking families, and just seeing the brokenness in families. I felt like that was very similar to Gateway. As far as working together, we knew what it was like to work together, so that helped. I mean, this was a little bit more pressure, but we had that before, and we're glad to be doing that again. Those are the 2 things that come to mind right away. What about you?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing you said. We knew there would be pressures as a couple working closely together in ministry. We already knew what those were. Obviously, they took on a different tone overseas, but they were still there, and we knew a little bit what to expect there. And just what we learned as far as working with people and getting to the heart of issues. Peeling back, like I like to say, like peeling back the layers of the onion to get to the true issue at the heart. And that's the same anywhere in the world. And those skills over the years actually have come back over and over in my workplace and ministry. Just that is something we've never forgotten. And the way we've been able to work with our children with that, it has been invaluable. I don't even want to know what kind of parents we would have been. Had we not had that training, I don't know. It was just, the value can't be overstated, for sure.
Okay, so not to gloss over your time in Africa, because I know it was hugely life-changing for you guys, but eventually, obviously we're here in the countryside of Eureka, Goodfield, in your house. So you come back to the States, and do you feel, I mean, was it a culture shock coming back just like it was going over there? Did it feel like going out to Leo? Was there any similarities in that?
No, I don't remember that there was. It was just, it was different. I guess for me, getting back into the workforce, it just felt, I really struggled with finding purpose, a meaningful purpose in my job. Even though it's just, you go from intense 24-hour ministry to a regular job, and you start questioning, is what I'm doing really important? Does this really matter?
Yeah.
And I had to pray about that, and God opened my eyes. He really did. To ministry is everywhere, and it is in every relationship. It is in every moment of every day if you're open to it. And we can just kind of feel like it needs to be something big, but it doesn't. And it can be in those small things of life, wherever you are. And so he had to kind of bring that understanding to me so that I could find some purpose in what I'm doing, and that there's something bigger going on always, no matter where you are. So it was hard at first, for sure.
Yeah.
So,
What was the question?
Just acclimating back into civilian life.
I'd say it's still a process.
Yeah. I think we're kindred spirits. So now you've been back a while, and you've assumed a position of representatives of Gateway in the Goodfield Church. So what kind of does that entail? I know that's a fairly new happening in your life, but so far, what have you seen from that role? What are your responsibilities? And
we just took it over a few months ago before the sale. So obviously we were promoting the sale, trying to get items donated, and just loved, being advocates for a ministry we love, and a ministry that impacted our lives and set us on a course we never could have guessed.
Yeah.
And I really think that was our first step in a journey we never would have guessed would have happened. And so we love being reconnected in some way with Gateway, because it's really where we got our start.
Yeah.
And so we just love advocating and promoting and just helping people learn about it, and encouraging people to go to the sale and be involved. Really love that. So.
Good. All right. Well, that is kind of all of my questions. I know, Carrie, you'd probably like to talk for hours.
I'm good. I talked more than I anticipated, so
You
ready
did great.
to shut it down.
No, just to close up, on behalf of Gateway and just as your friend, I just appreciate you guys taking the time, and we love you guys so much, and we're glad that you're a part of Gateway's legacy and the past, and you put time in there, and your fingerprints are there, and I'm sure Leo misses you, and I'm sure you miss parts of Leo, but we love you guys very much, and we're thankful for you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So that is it for this week. There is still a house parent shortage out at Gateway Woods. And as you heard Erik and Carrie's story, their testimony of how God used that position to springboard them into other things and just radically change the course of their life. If you are interested in missions at all, and you feel like going overseas is such a huge step, Gateway is a great baby step. It's still in the United States. You don't got to get all your shots or anything like that. You can just go to Indiana. If you're from Illinois, it's a weekend trip home. It's easy to come home and visit family, but it's a great springboard and a place to get your feet wet if you've ever been interested in all. So if you are interested, you can call out the Gateway. You can get in touch with me. I'd be more than happy to talk to you about it. My wife and I are house parents as well, and we can get you the information you need. And just be prayerful for it. Let God work in your heart, and let God work in your life, and see where He takes you. So next week, John will be back and get you somebody from Indiana. And thanks for tuning in.